2001 BMW Z3 3.0i, owned by Sebastian, such a passionate and caring owner. His dad owned this, he bought it off his dad, and now he set this up for autocross. So if you're wondering why it handles the way it does or why certain modifications were done, now you know. I remember seeing this car as a kid, thinking it was super cool, and of course those who played Need for Speed Hot Pursuit on PlayStation or computer, you remember this car as well as many other icons from that time. So excited to finally get behind the wheel of my first Z3. We're powered by a 3-liter naturally aspirated inline-6, making 225 horsepower, 214 pound-feet of torque, made it to a 5-speed manual transmission. We've got strut front suspension and semi-trailing arm rear suspension. And if you're wondering what the hell, it's because the front of the car is essentially an E36 and the rear an E30, a bit of a Frankenstein. Stock, these cars weigh in the 2,900 pound range, but the owner has saved about 100 pounds with various mods and removing various components. So we're in the 2,800 pound range now. In terms of mods, we have TCKline coilovers, Harddog rollbar, because again, autocross, Apex Arc 8 wheels, 17 by 8.5, 245 square setup with Advan V601s. And since the car is lower, he mentioned that he has the full camber and toe adjustment kit to fix that, because when you lower it, of course, those things change. So that's all been addressed. He also added poly bushings, solid aluminum subframe bushings, subframe reinforcement, Simota Ram Air intake. In terms of brakes, we do have good fluid, RBF 660. We've got Stoptech stainless brake lines, but he mentioned that he's running some Autozone special brake pads. Getting into the interior, you're first surprised by how massive this steering wheel is. It's like I'm captain of a boat on some kind of ship. Tiny little car, big ass wheel, no telescoping. So I'm 6'1", and I can't quite get situated here comfortably, if I'm being honest. I'm pretty far from the wheel for my legs to fit. Anyways, older vehicle. I am super excited to drive this. If you guys want to see a comparison with this versus an NB or NC Miata, then leave a comment below and fill out the form on jabalandcars.com, which is how Sebastian got connected and how we are reviewing his car. And we're gonna turn traction off because it tends to be very intrusive otherwise. Such a smooth engine. BMW inline 6s. You gotta love the induction. Got Simota Ram Air intake. Nice little mod. This car is from the era when BMW was known to have amazing hydraulic steering. Oh, even though we're only revving it out to about 6,500 RPM, it's not just the absolute number of the red line that counts. It's also the way it builds and the way the character of the notes change. I mean, my Amira has a 6,800 RPM red line, and that feels way too short, but here, the 6,500 feels actually appropriate. It feels adequate. Easy to heel toe, even though we're not in an optimal pedal and seating position. And while the steering has a good amount of feedback, it's pretty light, and in an older car like this, I mean, 2001, right, and 90,000 miles on the clock, it does have a good amount of slop as well. Cars back then also had slower steering ratios, which made the front end feel less responsive than some modern cars. Let's give you a pull. Fenton's son from the Zycreen channel behind us in the F-Type. We're holding him up. That thing has more than twice the power and torque. Mid-corner on the bumps, you can feel the car getting a bit unsettled. It's not a car that really inspires a ton of confidence in the current setup. And that makes sense because Sebastian set this up before autocross. He wants a lot of rotation. He wants to have this a little bit more oversteer prone. And you can feel that through the chassis even before you get to that point. The shifter itself, pretty long throws. And it has that BMW rubberiness that you're used to. Bothers some people more than others. Oh yeah, you can definitely feel the rear end wanting to come around a bit. You can use the throttle quite a bit to modulate that nose to tuck in and out as you get on and off the throttle as well. Very dynamic vehicle. Tiny car, short wheelbase. Older chassis, not the stiffest. You can feel a bit of that crashiness over the harsher bumps as well. And the very beginning travel of the throttle pedal, it feels like the first centimeter doesn't actually do anything. And then once you push beyond that, then it gives you a tiny bit of throttle. So that actually takes a little bit to get used to, especially as you're trying to be smooth with the throttle between shifts. I do very much feel like these cars are slept on. It's a lot of fun being behind the wheel, bombing the canyons in this thing. I would definitely get a more aggressive brake compound though, just to be a bit more congruent with how the rest of the car is set up. See right there, the throttle feels very abrupt when you get on, because as you're trying to be slow with the throttle input, it's nothing, 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 and then all of a sudden, boom, you get a lot. Because now you've actually moved you thought you were being smooth with the throttle input at the beginning, but it only picks up after a bit of travel. So again, something that you have to get used to. But the actual throttle response itself is very natural to rev match, and even as you're pushing the car for it to behave the way you want, once you're already in the throttle, it feels very natural, it feels very predictable. Just like that, very smooth, seamless rev matches. Let's give you guys a pull. I'm now really curious to see how this compares to NB and NC Miatas. Very similar recipe, but I would argue quite different implementations and feel to each vehicle. But I love driving interesting cars like this, and especially meeting such passionate owners like Sebastian, where you can just see the way they talk about the car, what they've done to the car, the level of care, how much they love it, and it's infectious, man. It gets you excited about a car. You get a richer driving experience because generally they have very tasteful mods as well to make the car drive better than it otherwise would. And while we didn't have the top down today for your audio pleasure, you have an inline six in the front, rear wheel drive, top down experience, 5-speed manual transmission, hydraulic steering. I mean, it has all the ingredients that you would want for an excellent driving experience. My friends, let me know what you think of the BMW Z3 with a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Much love, and I'll see you all in that next one.